Look, man, I'm I'm gonna keep it real with you, bro. You gotta stop playing League, bro. You gotta stop playing that game, cause it's not good for you. So you mean to tell me you spent 50 minutes playing a game with people you don't even like, that you don't even like, and you lost, and you queuing up again? Round number two? For who? Literally why? Like, let's just sort of think this through, right? So even if you get, let's say, generous amount, right, 55% win rate, okay, with the amount that you gain per win versus the amount that you lose per loss, right? At the end of that time, let's just assume that like you're gaining the same that you're losing, right? At the end of that time, you've gained 125 LP if you play 100 games, right? Dude, that's plus one division and 25 LP as like a net gain, right? You're gonna play 100 games, suffer 45 losses, right? For that? Bro, what? Bro, what? See, and the craziest part to me is, it's always the, nah, let's not forfeit, homies. You know what I'm saying? It's always the, play the game through, because we got an equal chance. Brother mans, no you don't. No you, your support, your support hasn't touched the role. They play mid, and they can't even, they're at like 45% win rate in their main lane. They don't know what they're doing, dude. They don't know how to help you, bro. They don't know what they're doing, bro. Right? Your jungler has never even seen, he doesn't know what smite is. He doesn't know what herald means. He doesn't know what Otacon does, bro. It's cooked. It's cooked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right, but in all seriousness, though, your rank actually doesn't represent your skill, sort of at all, if we're being real, right? Like, on lower ratings of the game, maybe, okay? Maybe you're able to use your mechanical skill to completely handle a match of players who are high ping, AFK, um, I don't know, just obscenely toxic for no reason, right? Maybe you can handle that, but there are also games in that where you are the recipient of those, you know, very toxic, AFK, high ping players. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I went from bronze 3 all the way to like plat 2 in the season alone. So I've seen a lot, and it seems consistent throughout, right? Same way in higher elo, maybe your teammates listen to you a lot better, and so they listen to players who are pretty good at shot calling, maybe, you know, thereby allowing players to have more agency on a game to game basis, winning more consistently on a game to game basis, right? I don't know. I would hope so. I would hope so, right? But speaking for the middle of the bell curve, which is something that I do know very well, um, as soon as you get to that point, it really is just a gamble of who has more players on their team, um, that want to win the game, pretty much. Or, to phrase that in a different way, right? Who has less people trying to lose, right? Right. So in the past, the game gave you a lot of different options to express your skill as a player, right? And these options were robust enough such that if you were good enough at the game, you could put your team in such a great spot that you could overcompensate all of like the negative behavior or the poor performance, I should say, about some of your team members, right? I would venture to say that it's possible to win as just a duo if you were good enough, right? It still might be the case now, but nowhere near the Tarek Mastery duo days. You know what I'm saying? Um, what was that other combo? Like, I think it was Sona, Nami bot lane or Sona Seraphine. I think it was Sona Seraphine, right? These combos used to be like devastating because you would only need one person who's good enough and another person who just supports them and they could take over a game, right? Even earlier than that, things like Draven Alistair bot lane, right? And just having that insane engage early and basically just taking over the entire game, right? And in addition to that, League also used to have more complex wave manipulation for the mid to late game, which was a very big way that players could demonstrate their skill at the game, right? So, for example, let's say that dragon is up, right? In the past, what you could do is you could stack the wave, the enemy or your ally wave, towards the enemy tower, right? And you could time it so that way your ally wave, which would be like a pretty huge mass, would crash at the same time that your team is preparing for the objective, right? And this was a very sort of like complex technique because it required you to understand which creeps to hit, the timing of how many creeps you needed, also being able to time the objective spawn because you needed to make sure that the creep speed would allow it to, and the speed at which it took out the enemy waves, right, were such that the crash happened in sync. But now, right, that doesn't exist because the team with the level advantage will always get the pushing wave, which means for mid to late game, you're almost always going to experience some sort of advantage from one team or the other, right? For late game, yes, like if everyone's level 18, then it equals out again. But if you look at the levels of the supports as well, right? The team that generally does better generally has supports with a higher level, meaning that to a certain extent, this like these sort of buffs just continue throughout the end of the game. Um, I explain all this to show you, right, that agency from a single player in the game has been taken away, right? And instead, we have these systems that are specifically in place such that the majority of the team, right, or the average performance of an entire team is the deciding factor in the game's outcome, right? So how am I confident that I've cracked the code about Riot's elusive system and how they are certain that, you know, they know who's going to win a game or who's going to lose a game, right? Which is something that they've said as well, right? It's because if you go back into your own matches as well, right, you can check this out in your own matches too. If you look at the games that you win versus the games that you lose, right, you will find that in the games that you win, you have more people rated at the elo you're currently at, right, than the enemy team does. So for example, if you are gold 4, okay, and you want to see, um, and we just don't even know if you won or lost the game, and we want to make a prediction, right? I'm going to look at your team. I'm going to say, How many players do you have that are rated at gold 4, right? If you have 3 players, then I assume that the other team is going to have only 2, right? More than that means that you're probably going to have players beneath the elo as well. So silver 1 players, like 2 silver 1 players or something on your team, um, 3 silver 1 players on the enemy team, for example, right? And I can be confident that the team with more players, excuse me, at a given elo is going to win over the team that has less players at a certain elo, right? It's not like it's not crazy computations, right? It's just a like statistical chance, right? And more than this, because Riot knows that it's that straightforward and that simple, that's why in Champ Select you can no longer see your allies' names, right? Because yes, it does like make people dodge games a lot more, things of that nature. And yes, there are people who are going to be off roll, people who are going to be playing like troll picks and things of that nature, right? But the real value in doing that is to dodge lobbies where you can already tell that things aren't going to pan out well, you know? Riot is doing the best that they can to try to keep players playing ranked as much as possible, right? Um, and you can speculate about like any given reason as to why they might want to do this. Maybe there's some financial incentive, let's say, for members of the league community, and maybe it's the case that if you watch LCS, you are more likely to play ranked, and there's some sort of correlation between ranked players and not just LCS, but like professional play in general, right? So having that sort of interest might be there, but I think that's pretty straightforward that the purpose of ranked play is not to discover like the next faker, right? Or the next Chovy, for example, right? It's not to create new new League of Legends moments that bring in a new audience. Instead, it's to continue the vehicle, right? To continue people playing. And so how do I know that this is kind of the case? It's because you will never find yourself in a position where you are gaining more LP than you can potentially lose, right? So for example, I'm speaking from experience here. You can go on a 10-game win streak, right? And maybe you gain 26 LP instead of 25 for this season, right? However, However, if you go on that same 10-game streak, but instead it's losses, you will easily find yourself losing 27, 28, even 29 LP, right? I believe, and I've tested, um, you don't want to see how many rank games that I have this season alone, um, but I've tested this out, and I have seen that everything sort of returns you to around the median skill level. Um, so let's say that you're coming from a lower, um, like elo rating, right? So like bronze or something, iron or something, right? The game will try to push you such that you're closer to silver rating, right? And let's say that you're at platinum or you're at low emerald, for example, um, and you start to lose a couple matches, the game will push you back in the opposite direction, right? Even at the extremes of like, I would say up through diamond from what I've seen, um, as your performance starts to, basically for whatever reason, right? If losses are coming, then you start to see very severe LP losses as well, pushing you back towards the center, right? So with a system like this, you're not meant to climb. right? And in fact, you probably won't if you have more than like 100 games already and you're not, let's say, at Emerald, right? Arbitrary metrics, but um, let essentially, if you've played a lot of games already on your account, assume that your account's just not going to climb, right? Even if you improve at skill in the game because of everything that I said before. So that's like basically everything that I wanted to rant about, right? Like I'm saying this as somebody who has spent more time playing League of Legends than I would like to admit, um, more time than I wish I had, actually, and I just don't want to see, I don't want to see you fall into the same trap, you know what I mean? If I could go back, I would tell, like, younger me exactly this, you know, that it's not a measure of your skill, um, there isn't really like an incentive for you to do well anymore. Even if you're good at the game, it's not as much of a marketable trait for something like Twitch. Because like now the biggest streamers are all personality streamers and not league streamers or like strictly game content unless it's a new game that comes out, in which case the streamers that you see are personality streamers who are playing as a part of the trend, not because it's like the their main game or something of that nature, right? So I mean, it's not very marketable, right? It's doesn't reward your skill. There's other things that you could do as well, you know. Maybe not games like Overwatch, which is definitely the same problem. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, pick up a fighting game. You know what I mean? Um, pick up like a game like Quake. You know what I mean? Speed run. You know what I mean? Like things like this are, it directly rewards your individual skill as a player instead of keeping you trapped in a system that convinces you that of a win when it's really just gambling. Like please, from me, your internet bro. Yeah, let's go with that. Your internet bro, right? No more 50-minute losses. You know what I'm saying? Please. Please, bro. Please.